Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma. Welcome to the Cognitive Podcast, episode 139, which could be named nothing but Life on Alderaan, because I will show you my proof at the end, but it has to do with a picture I took and then realized, good heavens, we have two moons. I don't know how this happened, but anyway, and the heat. So, it's Alderaan. There's no way around it. It is 103 degrees as I record this, and I've had quite the day, and I will tell you about that in the blather. But to cheer your day, I walked outside and the China rose was covered in the last week with all these dead flowers, and I'm thinking I have to go out there and deadhead. Went outside today, all bright new beautiful blooms, like overnight. My mouth dropped open. I scraped my chin up off the ground. My son comes walking by, and I said, look at the China rose. It's got a whole new set of blooms. And he completely matter-of-factly said, yeah, I've been watering it every day. So there's this insanely beautiful China rose having a second set of blooms. I didn't know it could do that. I'm just astonished. In the meantime, let's see what you need to know. First of all, in the warm thanks department, of course, everybody who is supporting CFR 2023, we will come back to that. I also wanted to thank our own Gail Torrey for noting, and I quote, the one thing I'd add to the 911 info is, if you live in a rural area, write directions to your home and tack it next to the phone. Maybe this isn't necessary anymore, but if you need to tell someone, and there's many road names and turns, it could be hard to remember this while under duress. Also, this is good if a child is making the call. That's the end of her quote. So a few thoughts on that. I'm in California. We do have extremely rural areas here that I think people living in the bigger areas like LA or San Francisco may not realize, that we have some areas that are way, way, way out there. However, 911, I don't know if this is uniform across the nation. Supposedly now, they have GPS on all of us because of satellite tracking, so they can locate your phone via GPS. However, there are occasionally problems with rural roads, dirt roads in particular. So I would take Gail Torrey's suggestion fairly seriously. Now, where I am, I'm not worried about it. Where I am, the maps, the GPS maps, show us very clearly. If I make a 911 call, I'm not worried because, look, I can go into Apple Maps and locate myself and see the way in perfectly clearly. And that might be a way to know this. If you're living on a farm in rural Nebraska or Montana, something like that, I don't know. I don't really know if you're on the dirt roads or what. So what I would say is, if you're going to take this advice, it's worth thinking about it. If you're in a rural area especially. And so I would go into your map on your phone and just look at where the GPS on your phone places you. Because if you can find yourself and you can see a clear path following roads that's accurate into your home, probably you don't need to do this. However, believe me when I say there are places in the United States where Gail is right on and you would have to do this. So check that. It's a good thing to keep in mind. The other thing is, putting your directions next to the phone is great for your kids if they have to give instructions to anybody on how to get to your house. We used to have GPS confusion when we first moved here. There are two different roads with the name of our road on it. And I noticed in about the last 4 years, the confusion has ended, that the GPS sorted it out finally. So if there's ever confusion getting to your home, maybe you should have the directions written from the main road to your home and put it next to the phone in case somebody needs it, because it is an excellent point that if you're under stress, you're going to have a hard time thinking through the directions. Also, it's good for your kids, as I would agree with Gail completely. So I think that's a really great thing to add, and my thanks, Gail, for reminding us of that. Okay, it's Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023 time. Saturday, November 11th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. are the hours on the event room. I will be there Friday night, November 10th, and I will be leaving Sunday morning, November 12th. The rest of you, do as you will. It is still $35 per adult attendee, and you're going to PayPal that to me, and you can see that in the show notes. It is not refundable. New piece of information. The last day you can pay me, the attendance fees, is September 1st, 2023. So what happens on September 2nd, you may be thinking? Well, what happens if you haven't paid me by September 1st is the wait list is now in. So if anybody on the wait list pays me, that means anybody on the main list can be bumped who has not paid me. Okay, so in other words, you can be bumped after September 1st if you have not paid me. The order in which I will bump you, good question. I don't know it either. I really don't. But anyway, September 1st, because the reality is I have to start paying for things now. That I would like to get us goodie bags, something more official, and in case we need funds for other things. We have broken even. That's great. So basically we've paid for the room. We've paid for my hotel room. Thank you very much. I do not know, I think we have raffle tickets. I think we have name tags. I have to go digging. So expenses after this, as far as I can tell, are pretty minimal. Okay, but at any rate, we're on the wait list now, and after September 1st, if somebody on the wait list pays, somebody on the main list gets moved to the wait list. So pay up, guys. Now, having said that, really the goal is to get everybody in. And frankly, the sooner everybody pays, the more I can build into this. So now that we've broken even, if people are paying me, I can afford things in the goodie bag. I can afford to buy more nice yarny things or soapy things from our vendors. So the sooner you pay, the more I can afford, the more perks we're going to have. Okay. And all the information you need for the hotel is in the show notes. There is a link. Book your group rate for Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023. That's what it says. That is the link to the hotel. You can also call the hotel. That's all in there. In the meantime, in the nice news division, we also have a confirmation now from our own Carrie of Alpenglow. Thank you, Carrie. That just makes me feel better. So the only vendor I haven't heard from confirmation-wise is Tina, who I'm not worried about. The only thing I can say about Tina and her soaps, Tina, give me a link. If you're selling your soaps online, give me a link. If you're not, then we will consider ourselves privileged to be the sole marketer, except for local shows around you, I imagine, of your soaps. Whatever you want me to do. What I'm really saying is vendors, hoping you're listening, vendors, any way I can promote you, let me know. Which leads me to say, Laser Sheep Yarns has also confirmed they will be making us a unique colorway for this show. Laser Sheep is in the middle of a sale, a 10% off sale. Link in the show notes, kids. I hope it's still going on by the time this audio posts. The notes will be posted earlier than the audio because I'm trying to keep everybody up to date on CFR 2023. So I'm posting my notes earlier than I typically would, namely as soon as I finish recording this. But anyway, Laser Sheep was having a 10% off sale. And she's got some spectacular colorways. There's one called Pines that I'm lusting after, but I'm controlling myself because I'm swimming in my stash right now. That's okay. I know I'm going to buy from everybody when I get to CFR 2023. That's what I'm telling myself. Anyway, Laser Sheep, not only is she having a sale, but she's going to make a special colorway for the show. And by the way, if you're listening, Laser Sheep, the sooner I get a picture of that, the sooner I put it in the show notes and promote it with a sort of frenzied, manic good humor. Okay, having said all that, let's see, the mini skein swap is still on. I added a new thing to that list. I have a list of patterns to use. I really should call it patterns and techniques, because I found Helix Knitting. And how I found this was I joined a group called Scrappy Sock Knitters on Facebook, popped up in my feed. Oh my goodness, I love this group. They're just like me. They all do Frankensocks and wild stripes and, oh, beautiful stuff. And a lot of them are doing this helix knitting technique. Now, if I try to describe helix knitting, I will probably inflict a traumatic brain injury on myself. It's not a hard technique, and it makes sense when you see it. But when you try to verbally describe it, I'd have to, frankly, pay somebody to unknot my tongue after I tried. So go look at the link. I actually have a link to Pearl Soho, who has a nice description of it. So I'm very happy about that. I'm toying with making some socks using the technique just to try it out, but we will see how that goes. In the meantime, I think everybody's up to date on the raffles. 1 free ticket if you bring a completed knitted or crocheted bear to Mother Bear Project's specifications. Has to be totally finished when you check in at the fiber retreat. Okay, for every one of those bears, you get another raffle ticket. Da-da-da-da! Classes, no classes yet. I would really like to hear from you all if you even want classes. I would really be curious about that, because if we want classes also, I need to talk to the hotel about setting up some tables in the meeting room we're using for the vending. So assuming we'll have extra space in there, or we can set up a few tables out by the pool, whatever. So if you guys want classes, do let me know. If you'd like to offer anything for the goodie bags, let me know. I'd be very excited about that. I'm trying not to drown us in CFR details right now, and there haven't been many developments where CFR is concerned this week. So I'm just going to move right on. What is on my hooks and needles? Well, yes, I finished those 2 skirts from last week. They are both in flannels, so they have gone into the closet to await the advent of the autumn. What's interesting about them, I think, one, of course, is in the same graphic pattern as my full circle skirt with the hearts in rainbow colors. This is also hearts in rainbow colors, but the palette is more blue and orange and pink. The other one is sort of a full RG-BIV rainbow. And this is very pretty. What I did, though, in the picture is I'm wearing it with a petticoat. So if you look at it and I look very broad, that's why. I was really stunned. I wasn't thinking. I was wearing underneath it one of my normal, what do I call them, 9-seam skirts. You know, the skirt with the waistband. The simplest skirt I make with a waistband. And I was wearing that, and I said, oh, the heck with it. And I just pulled the skirt on over my head, the just finished skirt. And so I had a petticoat under it in the form of the other cotton skirt. And I was stunned at how big it makes your hips look. It really is shocking. I had forgotten from the days of my youth when we used to wear petticoats, believe it or not, how much they foof out the outer skirt layer. So it's just an interesting thing to know that you're going to look much bigger in the hips and butt and, nether regions if you wear your skirt over another skirt. The other thing that is stark, raving amazing is how warm this is. You've added insulation, cotton insulation, a breathable level of insulation. I have never used one of my flannel skirts as the underskirt. I've always used cotton skirts, but I'm here to tell you, if the overskirt is cotton, you still get very warm with an underskirt in cotton. It's something you should know for the winter. It's actually a really great insulating technique. I got to a point where I was wearing leggings and a skirt last winter. When it got very cold, I started wearing leggings, a skirt, and a petticoat, an undercoat, an underskirt. Well, when I finally shed my leggings, one day I got cold, and without thinking, I just pulled on a second skirt because I was nowhere near my bedroom with the leggings, and was shocked that it made me warm enough without the leggings. Of course, I was wearing wool socks, because I do, the minute I get a chance to. But at any rate, if you want to see what the petticoat effect is, you can look at both those skirts, and you'll see how much it expands your profile. It's very warm, and I just find it very feminine. If you look carefully, you will see the little skirts peeking out underneath in both those pictures. So there are 2 examples of Simplicity 8605, the pink hearts and the breathtakingly beautiful fox and deer woodland animal tapestry. What do I have in progress? Well, in the stash toss, technically I'm still at 4 in versus 40 skeins out. But, as I think I told you last week, I have 4 skeins on the way from Knit Picks. that are just meant to be little bitty fill-in skeins for a planned yoke sweater. And I should add 2 more to the 40 out because I did go through all my skeins at last for the Lady Eleanor shawl. That is effectively finished. Oh boy. So here's what I did. I said it's supposed to be 11 skeins. So I took skein number 11 and I cut out the strips for the fringe. 52 strips, and each one is 40 inches long. And then I used up the rest. I saved a little bit because you have to crochet it onto the ends. All right, so I used up the rest. One little problem there. It came out after I washed and blocked it at least 75 inches long. So I looked at it, it's huge, and I said, oh my goodness, if I put the fringe on this, the fringe will be dragging on the ground behind me. There will be too much, and there's no way at that long it's a good idea. So I'm thinking about that versus the idea, since I have enough yarn to do it, left over, just a little bit here and there on skein number 10 and skein number 11. I am thinking about adding tassels, and I'm still just tossing it around in my head, because when I put this thing around me, in just a single circle around me, I don't wrap it all the way around. I just have it over one shoulder and then around my neck and then over the other shoulder and then hanging down the front on both sides. It's below my knees. So I don't know if I really want to add anything to this because it's so big. But I'm considering it because it does look kind of raw without something. You can see a picture of me wearing the finished body of the shawl. And I look happy in that picture because I am. I'm delirious, in fact. It way exceeded my expectations. It's breathtakingly beautiful. It's big. It's huge. It is the shawl I have always wanted. There is just no direction from which this looks bad. You can also see it drying. I hung it over my clothes rack because I said I really do want it to stretch, and it did, and it's fantastic. I love the way it blocked and dried. I just love it. And really, it's just hand blocked. I didn't pin it. I simply stretched it by hand over that rack and let it do its own thing. So I'm extremely happy about the Lady Eleanor. So is it finished? I haven't yet called it finished, but I might. This means I'm going to move on to the lane splitter and eventually the Pennsylvania Dutch embroidery. I thought I'd be doing the embroidery when it got really hot. Well, it's so hot we could be on Alderaan, and yet I'm not doing it. And that's probably because I started the Meow socks. And I did finish sock number 1 very rapidly this week. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stripe. I love the way she did the stripes. Some of them are solid and some of them are a sort of mix of what I would think of as calico colors. Although there's one band that's gray and has white and black in it, which isn't quite true calico. Anyway, this is a beautiful colorway. This is Hinkleston Handmade, I believe is what she's calling herself now. She used to be Rock and String. There you go. There is one finished sock. I do continue to carry the section called My Favorite Resources in the show notes. All of our Fiber Retreat artists, dyers, makers are on there now. They are also given their own link above under the Fiber Retreat section so you can find them. I really want you to be able to patronize these folks. In the meantime, I've got a few extras in there, and I'll let you go roaming through it. I am not spinning, despite the torture of Tour de Fleece and watching Jedi Mom and Steffi Joe crank out insanely beautiful, beautiful spools of handspun. I am not doing it this year. So that takes us on to the strategy. The strategy is just kind of simple. This was my theme song this week when I was treating patients. I'm going through all the tools with people, and people are saying they don't work, they don't work, they don't work. You have to learn to rely on more than just one. What's actually going on, if you go back through all the episodes where I talk about the tools, and you're going to go through them and go, well, I already do that tool, so I don't need anything else. Wrongity, wrong, 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 wrong. You need as many tools as you can have, and this is kind of common sense. The minute I say it, you're probably thinking, of course I do. Because there are just days you get tired of the same old drag. You get tired of the ways you encourage yourself or talk yourself into things you don't want to do. You just get worn out on it. This is why the more tools you have, the better you are. Now, if you need proof of this, come on, we're all multi-craftual. How do you think that happened? We're using knitting. Most of us were using knitting, some of us crocheting, as our starter distraction. We would get upset, we would get stressed, we would pull out the yarn, we would knit, or we would crochet. Well, it's a gateway drug, right? We all know this. By the way, don't try to deny it. I have been at 8 of my own retreats, and I went to one Knockers in Northern California, and I've been to a lot of Stitches. I am here to tell you, almost all of us walked into one of these events saying, look, I'm just a knitter. I'm not interested in the rest of that stuff. And then we walked out with a set of crochet hooks or a spinning wheel or some lovely acid dyes and a book or whatever. Or we walked out with patterns we thought we'd never try. That would be me and entrelac. Or skills we thought we would never do. That would be me and drop spindling. I know at CFR, come on, everybody raise their hand who's been to CFR and who learned a new skill there. We had tatting, we had knitting, crocheting. I don't think we ever did a dyeing class. I think we drew the line on that one because of the messiness that was possible there. We had wine drinking. Oops, that was just 1 year. We don't do that anymore. Anyway, the point is, when it comes to crafts, you don't just get hung up on one, that you like the feeling of creating. But sometimes you do get a little bit bored with your particular form of creativity. We've all had that where we say things like, I've lost my knitting mojo or whatever. So at this point, I'm looking at my drop spindles, my sewing machine, my pile of knitting, my crochet hooks, and my watercolors as I sit here. Get the picture? It's the same with your other tools, with your emotional support tools. You don't rely on just one. When you look at your emotional management skills, you remember those, right? Eat, sleep, move, focus. Same thing. We don't rely on just one. If you go to the gym and all you do is run on the treadmill, you're going to be bored out of your tree and you're going to give up running. So you go outside, you run on trails, you run on city streets, you run on urban pathways, you run on rails to trails path, or you run to new places. The last time I tried to start running, I was running to Starbucks, no lie, on an urban trail, because if I could get to Starbucks, that was enough motivation. I mean, you have to do whatever you have to do. Now, in the gym, I can't use a treadmill because I fall off the back of them. Why? I'm so bored on them. I literally go off into space and I fall off the back. So I got banned from 2 gyms for doing that in the midst of my marathoning career almost 20 years ago. So you can't just rely on one strategy. You can't just use one tool, whether it's in your crafts, whether it's in your exercise, in your meditations. When I got a little bored with just sitting meditations, I did walking meditations. I've done lace knitting meditations. You don't just stick to one thing. Variety really is the spice of life, and that's going to be true even in things like cognitive skills, like self-distraction skills, or the skills you use to improve the moment, or the skills you use to maintain your emotions on a day-to-day basis. So really what I want you to get is when you're thinking, I'm so depressed, what do I do now? You don't just go back to the tool you always use because it obviously isn't working, or you wouldn't be that depressed. You wouldn't feel so helpless. So you need to expand your toolbox and you need to diversify. You can't just rely on one thing. Having said that, let's roll on to the fluffy books. Still in the Bridgerton books. I believe I'm on book 6, which is When He Was Wicked, which isn't as spicy or sexy as you would think, happily, because I don't enjoy too much of that. It's like allspice. It should be a really tasty seasoning. It shouldn't just be drenching the recipe. But anyway, I'm still enjoying the Bridgerton novels. Oh, yes, I did see Nimona on Netflix. I'm still thinking my way through it. It's an animation from a graphic novel. It's very smart. I was impressed with the intelligence of it, and it is brilliant in the way it handles issues of difference in terms of sexual and gender difference from what used to be considered the norm. And it's really, really brilliant the way it handles that. Very, very smart. However, I do feel that at the end it ends up being quite misogynist, So, you have to do with that what you will, but I am glad I watched it. I would say, in terms of intellectual stimulation, the best part is the opening, near the opening, where Nimona and the knight are talking about why Nimona does what she does and why she just won't act like everybody else to blend in. And it is a brilliant piece of logic where, of course, people who are different hear this all the time. And putting it in the mouth of a gay knight talking to Nimona with her difference, which I'm not going to ruin the plot and tell you, is just a very sharp piece of observation that anybody, even people who perceive themselves as different from the norm, can make this kind of mistake. But also it really shows you why, when you see it applied to Nimona, and I don't want to give away why she's different, but when you see it applied to her, you really realize how ridiculous the argument is. And the fact that the knight who's making it is in an openly accepted homosexual relationship is very poignant, because now he's in the mainstream. For us, he wouldn't be, but in his culture, he is. And it really shows you how cultures separate people and make them other in a way that does enormous damage. And Nimona's answer is simply brilliant. When you get to the climax of the movie, the thing Nimona is willing to do because of her pain at being different and never being able to escape it or feeling as if she cannot, the thing that she's willing to do, it's masterful. It's just masterful. But again, I do think in the end it comes up as kind of misogynistic. So, I don't know. Go watch it and see what you think. It is worth the watch, but it is a little painful that basically the systems instituted by the women who rule are screwed up in the past and they're screwed up in the present. And anyway, go watch it. It is very smart, though. It is a very, very smart film, and you may not agree with me that it is misogynist in its content. I'd be interested in feedback on it, but it is worth the watching just on the basis of how intelligent it is. Something I really like, I started painting using andrea.nelson.art on Instagram. I did her exercise where you make a fish. To my absolute amazement, it came out beautiful. It's tacked up on my wall in my study, and I'm looking at it right now. And what I really liked about it, I know when I succeed in an art form. In this context, success equals I really like what I did. I don't think I could sell this at an art gallery, in other words, but I really like what I did. And I like it so much I keep looking at it. And one of the ways I know I have succeeded is I am multi-craftual, and I am, in the very beginning of all my craft work, I am a writer. I have been a writer since the cradle, and I will always be a writer first and foremost. I don't talk about it a lot on this podcast, but I am published as a poet, as a fiction writer, and as a literary critic. I feel pretty good about that. I was one of the pioneers of teaching on the internet at the university level, and I'm very, very proud of it, although I don't even recognize that. That has developed so much, and there's so much more software and technology attached than back in the good old days when we were struggling to put up web pages for our classes. So I am a writer first and foremost, and I know something works when I suddenly look at it or think about it and a story pops into my head. And that's what happened with Benjamin the fish. I did Benjamin, and I realized that Benjamin was a fish who came to me, and I was thinking, do I want to throw him back or eat him? And he said, how could you possibly eat something as beautiful as me? So as a gift for letting him go, he gave me his image in my head. So that is the story of Benjamin the fish. And he is right there in the show notes. There's 3 versions of him. The first is really the most complete finished version of him. But Benjamin got his own story, so you know Benjamin is a star. And I am in love with this Instagram feed by Andrea Nelson Art. I just am crazy over it. I have done others, but Benjamin is the one you should meet. Put a lid on it. The tea tastings, I went rabid this week tasting tea. In the Earl Grey collection, there were 2 with lavender in them. I love the smell of lavender. I am deathly allergic to lavender. This is so unfair because lavender has so many healing qualities, and yet I am allergic to it. So I took a mouthful of one of them and spat it out and realized, oh Lord, I can only imagine what happens if I ingest lavender. So I will probably be bringing at least one of those bags, because the other one was opened, the little sample bags, to CFR 2023. And if you're nice, you may win it in the raffle, but it would be kind of a small consolation prize. However, there were some real successes this week in the tea tastings. One was the sample they sent me of Cranberry Earl Grey, winner chicken dinner. This was terrific. I drank it hot because that's the way I drink Earl Grey, particularly if it's a caffeinated version. And the cranberries are just a lovely complement to the bergamot basic flavor. Cranberry is a good thing anyway if you're a girl, and I'm not going to go into that. Most of you know it. But they also have orange peel and hibiscus and black tea and rooibos tea in this. It's a complicated thing. And blue cornflowers to make it pretty, make it have a bluish tint. I'm not sure if blue cornflower has any other purpose in the tea except to give it a blue tone in its coloring to make it darker and prettier in the cup. I'm good with that. The scent of this is delightful. It is not a standout floral like their Lady Grey version, which is still my favorite of all their Earl Greys. But I really have to say the Cranberry Earl Grey is a good cup of tea, and I would recommend it. If you want something that is a little less flowery than the Lady Grey, I would go for this. In the meantime, the watermelon mint. I got that as an herbal, and I ordered it again because it's so good. And you can see pictures of both the ingredients lists of both these teas. So yes, I got a bigger packet of the watermelon mint. This is insanely good. This is so good iced. I think it would be dead in the cup if you made it hot. I think the flavors would just vanish. It would just taste like a slightly weird mint herbal. But as an iced tea, the smell and the flavor of the watermelon come through. This is what you wanted it to be. This is like drinking the juice of a watermelon without all the sweetness and a little mint overtone. You don't need sweetener in this stuff. Just make it iced. You don't even have to add sparkling water. When I add sparkling water to it, I make it flavorless sparkling water because I just want a little bubbly behind those two flavors, the watermelon and the mint. It's just sensational. I can't recommend this enough. Watermelon mint and the pear cinnamon have become my house iced teas. They are so good. I'm drinking them every day, and I'm simply loving them, and I will be reordering them. In the dark teas, my house teas right now, Lady Grey, and then a different company, Dilma, their Ceylon is just a basic dark tea when I need a Ceylon. That's what I'm drinking right now. But the tea tastings are not yet over. On to the blather. Well, this is rather short as episodes go right now because of the first item, which is the pup date. Captain and Queenie went to the groomers. And normally when I take my dogs to the groomer, I have used these groomers for years, but they're up in the area between Lancaster and Palmdale, up in the Antelope Valley, a little bit out of the way towards the desert. Although now the area has gotten considerably built up, I noticed today. But I get along with these people wonderfully. And so I took them, but usually they do my dogs fairly quickly because they know the dogs, etc. These are two strange dogs for them, so they left them for last. So I went there thinking, okay, dropped them off at 10, thinking I'll get them back at 2. Now I got them back at 5:30, so I spent the whole day up in that region running errands and doing things that I needed to do or wanted to do. I came back exhausted. It was 103 degrees up there. They came back exhausted. You can see in the pictures, they're just sacked out. I couldn't even get a picture of either one of them standing up and looking pretty. They came home and they collapsed. Captain was a nervous wreck in the car. She gets frantic in the car. She thinks we're going to do something terrible like go to the vet. Queenie actually is kind of so-so in the car. On the way home, Queenie was like, oh, thank God it's you, and got in the car. Captain was like, oh my God, now where are you taking us? Is there another place we're going to go to be killed or isolated or cut off from home? So anyway, they came home. They both basically used the restroom, drank a ton of water, ate big dinners, and passed out. So that's it. They are finally groomed. Although Captain probably needs it going over by the vet because we think she has some foxtails embedded, but the groomer did a phenomenal job trying to get them out. In the hub state, the boys continue to spruce up the place. I have to say, this should be the son date because my son has turned into an exquisite gardener. He's bored up here on the farm in the heat. He is willing to go out there, put on a lot of suntan lotion, take off his shirt. He wants to tan his back and his belly. 17-year-olds, what can you say? It is disturbing that it does look good. He tans with the most golden undertone I've ever seen on a human. He looks great in a tan. It is kind of shocking, and he doesn't burn very easily. I don't know where he got that from. My husband and I burn like there's no tomorrow. He's enjoying it. And he will go out and garden for hours, and that makes me happy. We have been looking at the California buckwheat because we have it everywhere. It's growing wild. It is wild up here in the desert, but it is also considered a garden plant and a cultivar. You know what that means, right? It means take a shovel and go out and dig it at night and transplant it before the day gets too hot and put it all over your garden because it's going to succeed. It is everywhere. Our front corral is loaded with it. Below that, you can tell which way the wind blows because right below it on the neighbor's wasteland, wall to wall. So I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, I just have to dig up the energy and do it in the cool part of the day. But I'm going to start transplanting that buckwheat because it's too good to leave there. It's just free garden plants. It'll go anywhere. It's a great pollinator. I learned this from my plant identification app. And it's terrific. And there is no denying. It's just going to grow like a weed, which is exactly what we want. But it's on a limited space, frankly. If it took over the whole place I plan to put it, I would be the happiest person on earth. It would look great. All I want out of the property right now in front of the house, not quite against the house, but the part that's in the full sun, all I want is covered with pollinators. Any natural California thing I will take. So if this takes over, more power to it. The plants that I bought that are coming on the 19th, which is the day after tomorrow. Today is July 17th, and it's 8:22 p.m. as I record. Those plants are coming in 2 days. They are going up against the house. My wonderful son, and to some degree my husband, weeded it to death. I cannot believe how good it all looks, and how empty it looks, and how ready for cultivation it looks. So we're going to just lay down the plants, and then lay down cardboard on top of it and lay down some rocks on top of that if I have my way and just start watering it and letting the cardboard degenerate just to keep the weeds down and to let our plants go. Meanwhile, my son did a heroic job. He took the cacti out of their pot and planted them. And it's a rather strange looking picture. It looks like a hand trying to make the I love you sign in ASL to me. Like two big fingers sticking up and some smaller fingers bent around. We have had these cacti in pots for about 20 years. And it doesn't live and it doesn't die, but once a year suddenly flowers pop out on the top. They look dead and flowers pop out. Finally we said, good Lord, we have to put them in the ground, and we did. And I go out there and I water them once every 2 days because it's that time of year. And I don't want them in shock. I want them to actually start rooting. Who knows if they're alive or dead? I mean, that's the question we've been asking for 20 years, and then the flowers pop out. But we finally planted the cacti. My son did it. I'm so happy. And I also went on the prowl today with my Plant ID app, looking around the parking lots where I was today by our local mall, looking at the full sun plants that looked good. So I found a few of those. No, I'm not going to go up to the mall and steal them by night. I wish I could go up and just separate their roots, but I don't know what the mall people will think I'm doing. I don't want to get arrested by their security or have them call the cops on me. But anyway, it did identify a few plants, and I'm sure I can find, if I can find a desert garden place. And that made me really happy. And again, I'm looking for pollinators that go for Zone 9B. And I also am using happily my Farmer's Defense sleeves and gloves. For gardening, I'd like to get one of their hats and possibly an apron and some shears, but anyway, one at a time, kids, one at a time. You may remember Gloria, the morning glory, that I planted parts of her outside. There you go, 3 little leaves that are still making it. I planted like 6 different shoots, probably now about 9 or 10 days ago. I got some leaves. I know they are Gloria. They are still connected to one of the vines that I put in there. So those aren't a weed, although it's tempting to think so. In the meantime, you may remember Audrey 3, our wisteria, who my son cut down. And now Audrey 3 is Audrey 4. She's huge. She's just a bush by the side of the porch. She doesn't provide the vines going up onto the top of the porch yet, but we'll get there. But she's great. And she's reaching across the pot that the new Gloria is in. So I had to move her vines away to take that picture. But there's a picture of 3 little leaves. Meanwhile, my son brought home yet another plant. This is Curly. Curly Joe. Curly is a curly jade. Believe it or not, Curly may actually not do well here because we may not be hot enough for Curly. That in our zone, they say you have to bring Curly indoors to win her over. That's a bummer. I'm thinking of putting Curly out by the front of the house where there's full sun and it stays warmer, because against our house is a very warm spot. But I don't want to kill little Curly. And Curly, I can't tell what Curly's doing. I don't believe my son fully buried Curly's roots, but Curly seems okay, as if you can tell if you look at the picture. So that's all I can't believe I'm naming all the plants and making you listen to all of this. But again, talking about multi-craftual this week was just knitting and gardening and painting. So I'm down from the week before that, I guess. On the calendar, you know it. Sing right along with me. Cognitive Fiber Retreat 2023 on Saturday, November 11th, 2023. There is one more thing I would like you to know about CFR. Many of you who have attended in years past will know this, but I'm going to tell the rest of you. Once you have come to a CFR, you are always admitted. Okay, so in other words, we really want to cultivate a group of regulars. That was one of the great secrets of CFR. It was an in-group. I'm not even going to pretend anything else. So if you have ever come to a CFR, the rule was you are already on the advanced list. What does this mean? It means if we have a good CFR 2023 and I do a 2024, it means that everybody who goes this year gets first shot at coming next year. Okay, so if you like it, we're going to bring you back if we can. And that doesn't change year to year. So if you came to CFR 1, but you couldn't come to CFR 2, you still were on the advanced list for CFR 3. And if I do another one in 2024, and a lot depends on how this one goes, then you will have advance dibs for any future CFR that I do. So I just kind of want you to know that, because that's a major truth about CFR. We cultivate a group. We want to have people we like always able to come back. Meanwhile, the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference, that is in Anaheim, California, down at the Convention Center, which is right at the edge of Disneyland. That will be December 12th through 17th, 2023. I will certainly be there for, I believe, the 15th through the 17th, but I may work on getting that whole time off. But it is important to me that I get Romeo off, which is December 26th through 31st. So we'll see how my time goes. Wow. In the meantime, Minerva gets the last word. And as you can see, Minerva is on Alderaan. She's looking at our window at sunset, and there's 2 moons. I have no idea how this happened, but I'm looking at my window right now, and I can sort of see how it happened. Okay, don't tell Minerva. It's the reflections of 2 lamps on my desk. Don't tell her. She thinks she's on an alien planet. She also thinks that the sand raiders are like 2 inches high, because I used to have a little figure of that, and she thinks she can eat them. So for the love of heaven, do not tell the cat. She thinks she's on Alderaan, and she's staring out the window, hoping that something she can chase and eat or kill. She's not good at killing things, to be honest, but don't tell her I said that either. Anyway, that's the fantasy, that we are just cruising around in Alderaan. She knows this because I opened the front door last night, and a gust of heat so ferocious rolled in the 170-degree heat that Minerva, instead of trying to run out the door, charged backwards. She hated it. So it is as hot as Alderaan out there right now. So at any rate, that's it for us over here at Rancho Cognitive. You all know the drill. You really do, right? It's very normal here, by the way. I was out today and I just realized nobody's wearing masks up in the Antelope Valley. Nobody was gloved. Everybody was sitting fairly close. You can see some after effects. I was sitting in a BJ's restaurant and they put up spit shields between the booths. So the people who were next to me, there was a plexiglass or acrylic panel between me and them. I really appreciate that. I think they should have done that years ago in every restaurant so that we don't have to share our germs with people sitting close to us. However, that was the only sign I saw of the former pandemic, and it's really nice. Please do remember to get all your shots, though. Please do put a few masks in the glove compartment before you come to CFR 2023, because we don't know how it's going to be, but please take care of yourself, and by means of that, you will take care of everybody else. Remember, we are a community. We all do better when we take care of ourselves and we take care of each other. And on that happy note, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.